and there are small issues. And depending on who you ask, the small issues may be a huge issue for some people, and vice versa. And therefore, when it comes to actually seeking knowledge, trying to determine what is valid and what is important, not just valid or important, but valuable or useful, it can be a little tough. And in the realm of spirituality, if you will, I made the video even yesterday about this. It was selling spirituality. And this will be a response kind of video to a question I got from Luna Lotus. And it opened up, it's a question that I've tackled before, but it was difficult to do in a comment section, so I thought a video would be a little better. So I'm going to read the comment. It says, if you are a truth seeker, then this has crossed your mind before. Obviously, if we start communicating with others in the mystical world, we get several messages. Some revolve around the spiritual and esoteric world, or secret knowledge, or knowledge only meant for a few to comprehend and understand. We also see people in the same community that we know to be fabricating this information or using it for some other purpose. An example would be all the conspiracy theories that never came true. What are your thoughts on this? Maybe you could do a video on this if you have the time. Finding the truths and untruths within the esoteric world. How do we do this? I've heard of initiation. Is this the key, or is it another fabrication? And that's a wonderful question. And there's so many different ways to answer that, but I would be going completely by my subjectivity. As being an individual who's seeking my own path, I can't know what other paths people have gone down or how successful they've been. For example, a person who is a, quote, a guru, or a person who spent their entire life in meditation, a person who would be considered enlightened, maybe a bodhisattva, with satori experiences, awakenings, and they may seem to be the most together person. Yet, we can never know exactly what's going on in their head. We can never know how they feel, whether they're living in complete bliss or whether they've created that bliss. But ultimately, I say bliss because that's what we're really after. And no matter how much we try to break down spirituality to being this is what we should be doing or that's what we should be doing, ultimately it's to bring a sense of comfort and satisfaction to a life that's short, rough, and that we don't understand. So as far as the initiation, and I thought that was the part that kind of it opens up a Pandora's box, I suppose. The initiation into several groups, such as, let's just use the Freemasons as an example. The Freemasons were a continuation of the old esoteric schools. And the esoteric schools began in probably predated ancient Egypt, but that this was based on not just preparation for the afterlife, but preparation for a reincarnation or whatever it may have been. A group came together to believe in something greater than themselves that couldn't be proved physically. And the initiations would generally be a way of showing that a person is dedicated, rather that they're not just stepping in and saying, give me the answers, I want to know them. But it's more than that. It's not that a person, let's say a person went through, because in Freemasonry there's 33 degrees, but these have definitely fallen by the wayside as far as the value of the actual teachings. I mean, speaking with ex-Freemasons, the things that are actually taught, even if you learn them, if you're not quite prepared to see the metaphors and the underlying archetypes, then you'll miss the whole thing. And this could be the same for an example when they say people who have eyes to see and ears to hear. And often when people say that, they think that a person is being elitist by saying, well, they're assuming that people just aren't smart enough to handle the information. But it's not that. It's that people aren't educated enough to handle the information because they don't know how to assimilate it. If you had never learned anything about religion or spirituality and you read the Bible, you may be able to take it as metaphors if you were a metaphoric thinking person, or you may take it literal if you took it as a book. Different perceptions of the same book. What we're after is the underlying archetypes behind all the writings and all the beliefs. And so when it comes to initiation, I think that it's kind of the initiation doesn't really initiate you into any knowledge. It merely initiates you into a group that feels that they want your trust and you want their trust, so you can share and learn together. And So I don't believe that there's an inherent knowledge that's being directly suppressed from the people by a group of elitists. And the reason I don't believe this is because it was easy for folks to say 20 years ago. But today, with the advent of the internet, there are no secrets. We can peek into every crevice and corner. We can no longer say, well, this group might do this behind closed doors, when we have people filming it and sneaking in with cameras and recording people. So we know that there are conspiracies going on. We know that there are larger groups going on. But when it comes to actual hoarding of knowledge within specific, say, spiritual groups, I think that that's kind of a misconception of what's really going on. Those in many groups assume the average person to be what they would call the profane. And the profane would be people who are living in their primal minds, people who have not learned to excel beyond their monkey self, if you will. They just get mad at everything, and I guess that would be an insult to even monkeys, because monkeys have a good social structure. They have their hierarchy, and they know who's in charge and who's not. Humans, we want to wrestle and argue about this. We all want to be the alpha. We all want to be the one who knows. But in reality, none of us really know. That's why we come together as a group. That's the only reason we come together as a religious group, or a secretive group, or a mystical or occult group. Because if these things were obvious, and we all knew all this to be true, that yes, we reincarnate, and this is what we do with our lives, and this is our soul path, we wouldn't need to get together. It's just like AA. They get together to support each other because it's a tough thing, and they have to find like-minded people. Otherwise, it's easy for your brain to go off its own way. So, and everybody finds out whether a group works for them or not. For me personally, I find there's nothing to learn from a group, or joining a group at this point in my life, except for a group, maybe a discussion group, philosophy. But I'm talking about, I would never join a class to learn spirituality, or say, take this course to learn how to be my full self. I find that preposterous. So the ultimate secret, what's really being held back, is only being held back by ourselves. Let me try to compare this to media. A lot of folks like to say that the media is lying to us, the media is fooling us, the media is telling us all this crap that we don't need, but the reality is, we secretly don't want to admit the media is telling people exactly what they want to hear. The people don't know why they want to hear that, but they know they want to hear it, because bad news gets people worked up, and people like secretly to get worked up over things. Sometimes when we sit back and analyze it, we realize that we are part of the problem. The same thing with marketing. Everybody complains because they're sitting there on their iPhone complaining about how everybody wants new stuff. It's like, you don't need to buy the latest gadgets. You don't need to have all these things, but we just think we need them. For some reason, something new comes out and people need it. I've been able to conquer that part of myself that desires to have things. I still enjoy having things. I've got all my fun stuff I do, but I don't have to have a better one than the next person. That's the key. It's a competition. So in the same way, and I'm using this as a metaphor to compare to spirituality or religion, how we move on to the next thing, and how everybody wants to have the latest and the greatest, and to prove that what they believe is right. No, my religion's right, or no, my beliefs are right. And religions have put down cultures that don't believe in their religion. But now the New Agers have done the same thing. They're putting down anybody who dismisses them, and anybody who asks for actual answers. It's like they give you a little pat on the back and be like, oh, it's okay, you'll understand one day. And that's total nonsense. What it really comes down to is developing our own sense of what's going on in this world. As an individual, people will tell you you're wrong, people will tell you you're right, people will agree with you, people will disagree with you. But just keep on that, and really stand up for who you are as an individual. But learn how to draw the line. If everything you say is causing havoc and conflict in your life, then you're probably not on the right track. And only an individual can find that. There are so many people out there pointing the finger at each other, telling others how to live and what they're doing wrong and what they're doing, that should be different. It's the funny, some of the comments I've had on my videos over the years, like, oh, you shouldn't do drugs, or oh, you shouldn't vape, or you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that, or, you know, this is holding you back. And I say, you know, you have no idea what's holding me back in my life, but even if you do, fuck off. You know what I mean? It's nobody's business. There's a difference between when a person's really expressing concern because they care about you, and when a person's being a pious, arrogant prick online to try to pick at something. I mean, how many times have you watched a really deep, moving video that may be 20, 30 minutes long? Well, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but and then you read in the comment section and it's just people saying, picking out like one part that's wrong in it, finding the one flaw or the one thing they disagree with. And this is what we do to each other. And you know what? It gets worse when people are doing better. The better you seem to be doing, the better people perceive that you're doing. The more that some people will try to resist you and find flaws in you. And we can see this with famous people, celebrities. Even if the celebrity really doesn't do anything to, if they just live their own life, mind their own business, people will create this entire chaos around the person, such as conflicts between band members, and everybody will think, oh, you know, like Metallica with, if you don't know Metallica, but there's all these conflicts between band members and whatnot, and then people will create their own stories about it, and they'll start putting in their heads how another person's life is. And sometimes it's because they're curious, but a lot of the times people are just jealous of one another. And if we see another person that seems to be doing well, and they seem to be on the right path, we want to know, how are you doing this? Rather than saying, oh, you're wrong. But I don't know, kind of got off track there a little bit. My point being that I don't think there's no initiation into a spiritual state of existence. And I don't even like using that word, but it seems to be the throw-around word, spiritual. To me, that just means that you believe that there's something inherent within humans that's outside of the physical realm. And it's not something that we have to be able to define. It's not something we have to be able to prove. And in fact, knowing by now, we should know that it is nothing we can prove. There will be no moment where people just wake up. There will always be those who choose to sleep, and that's the world we live in. So that may sound defeatist, as if I'm saying, well, it is what it is, but it really is, to an extent. Because once we set that aside and stop trying to change other people's minds, we can come back to our own and see where we have flaws. You know, I'm constantly working on my flaws and constantly finding new ones. And that's why telling other people about their flaws doesn't do any good. But if other people are telling you how to live and they're telling you what you need to do, don't let it get to you. Just blow them off. If you have several loved ones telling you that you have a problem with something, then perhaps you should listen because they're probably concerned. But if it's just random people on the internet telling you how they feel about you, just remember that they're probably sad inside. And that those who are seeking, who claim to be seekers, who are pushing their seeking view on you, who are saying you need to believe this or you should believe this because this is just true, it's so obvious. If it was that obvious, we wouldn't be discussing it. You know, it's not even obvious whether light is a wave or a particle, and it's what we use to view everything. It's an interesting world we live in, and everything is just so, right? Talk to y'all later.